welcome back, everybody. We're doing another episode of Pioneers and Builders in Jacksonville, Florida, or as I like to call it, PB and Jax. Today, got a great guest who does great things in the community, and I was fortunate to meet at a previous 100 Men Who Care event. Della, welcome to PB and Jax.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy that we're here and we're doing this.
Well, I appreciate your time and excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to talk about a couple of things, but what we're really here to talk about is Girls of Virtue. It's 5 years in the making, and we were fortunate to see the Girls of Virtue live pitch at the Veterans United Brewery for the 100 Men Who Care event back in January, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I would like to talk about the origin story in the beginning. I know you've told me off camera that you were hoping to write a check and help some kids, and Lord knows what you were getting into at the time, but it's blossomed since. So let's talk about Girls of Virtue. Let's talk about the early stages and walk us through the origin story and why you wanted to do it.
Okay. So originally, a lot of it had been on a heart of a calling for me for a long time, was to help young women growing up like me. And when I say growing up with me, a lot of that had to do with just growing up with poverty, the broken home, abuse, getting connected in a lot of things that the world kind of gets us sideways with. But really where it began was I launched my first company in the beginning of 2020. And I just promised myself by, March of 2020, if I'd made enough money to pay my mortgage, I'd stay working for myself. So I had been tithing at that point and was really excited about the fact that I could tithe 10% of the gross because I owned the company at that point. So I set up a 501(c)(3). I called it Girls of Virtue because my company was called Virtue Consulting, and virtue was the word in which I had prayed about in regards to what I stood for. And I wanted my clients to know that that's what I stood for. And then as I thought about it, I was like, well, all right, well, I want to teach young women what it means to live virtuous lives. So the thing that helped me the most as a young woman was getting into an industry that paid me enough money to pay my bills, cover my health stuff, not feel the insecurity of a lot of that. So I was like, well, what if I gave them a vocational trade? I could donate $2,000, $2,500, and they could be a realtor or a welder or, mechanic, and then you change their lives. So I set out I know I needed to make $100,000 my first year, nets me about 60, which would have covered my bills. So I was like, all right, $100,000, $10,000, $10,000 pays for an average of 5 vocational trades. So I set out and said, okay, I'm going to, by the end of my first year, I want to give away $10,000. So I had this vision in my mind that I'd set up an office and, you'd bring them in and you'd take the pictures and, you'd write a check. And I couldn't shake this feeling. Like I was getting this visual of the Lord laughing at me. Like it was this belly laugh sitting on a throne. You're funny. That's not my number. You got to think bigger. And I just couldn't shake it. Every time I'd tell somebody I wanted to help 5, I would get this visual image of that's not it. It's not the right number. And I just kept praying. And I'm like, well, why are you laughing at me? Like, I don't even know if I can do 5. And before I knew it, I wrote an entire business plan running the Beach Boulevard Bridge. I would talk to my AirPods every time something would come to my heart. And by the time I was done, I'd come back, take notes, and I wrote a whole business plan on 3 things. 1, how to empower and equip the next generation to be grounded spiritually, mentally, physically, financially. And with that, those were the 4 pillars in my life as a young woman that had made me feel grounded. My spirituality. I knew that God just loved me and I was wonderfully and perfectly made, that my identity wasn't tied to my past or my job or a relationship. I had really good, overall health. I was running my first ultra. I ate well, and just what the difference that made in my life. I was sleeping well and really had begun to study what those things meant. I had a really good understanding of mental health. I had been seeing a therapist. I'd healed from any trauma, but I really began to learn, like, what are good boundaries? What are good communication skills? How do I grieve? I think about how much of grief happens over life that we never bother to teach people not to shove it down. And then I really had understood what money, like I call it my financial pillar, but when we really get into it, it's adulting 101. We all turn 18, but we neglect to teach us that there's 3 credit bureaus or the difference between compound and simple interest or how to pay your taxes or health insurance or car insurance. And I was like, man, if I could take the average kid, statistically, if all I did was give them the vocational trade, 1 of my 5 would have succeeded. So I asked the Lord, how do I make it 3 of 5? And he told me that. He said, love on them and these 4 pillars love on them younger, and where did you go wrong as a girl? And I remember from 14 to 16, I did more drugs than most people ever do in their lives. And the problem with that was home life kind of sucked, so I didn't want to go home. We were poor, so I couldn't play sports. I couldn't do anything after school. So you kind of end up hanging out in your neighborhood. Well, if you hang out in your neighborhood, then you're hanging out with the people that you don't need to hang out with. So I set out to open a space. So we opened a center downtown. We spent the last 3 years renovating an old daily record building, and we just opened it up after school and began to offer free workshops in those pillars. And it grew exponentially more than I could have ever dreamed. We ended up meeting with some local dropout prevention high schools because God just kind of dropped us in them. They're the exact same schools I went to as a kid that are the only reason I ever graduated high school in the first place. And we started teaching workshops there. That alone in 2023 to 2020 or 24 to 25, we reached 150 kids through high school outreach. And last year, we launched a pilot of what we call our executive boot camp, where I took 5 girls and I gave them a mentor and a vocational trade and said we'd walk with them for 3 years to see how they did. And 3 of my 5 are succeeding.
It's wonderful. The mentorship, where are you finding them?
So a lot of them have been, people that have come to us and said, I want to help. One of the ladies that's one of my mentors right now is part of the junior achievement team. We reached out to Junior Achievement and wanted their partnership to teach at the school center, and they did. And she was the connector of that for us, so she became on board. Some people I've met through church, some have been friends, some people have just reached out to us randomly. But right now, we're in the process of needing more coaches and mentors because we only piloted 5. But the goal in 2026 is to open applications for 2027 to a bunch of them. So we'll be spending the next 12 to 18 months onboarding what we call 2 things, Hope Team and coaches. And so we're actually opening that up to the whole city of just asking people if they have a heart to want to come love and spiritually walk with some young women. And then that becomes our Hope Team. And then our coaches are the women that want to walk alongside with me that say, hey, I'm willing to level up in those 4 pillars. I'll put in the work spiritually. I'll put in the work mentally. I'll put in the work physically and financially. And then we'll assign them as what we're calling coaches with the executive team. Because in my experience, our mentors are great. They walk with you, they love on you, they meet with you and have coffee, and they just kind of make sure you know you're cared and you're loved for. And then my coaches need to challenge you to get out of your comfort zone. I'm not wanting you to stay where you are. I'm trying to level you up to the woman that you never dreamed you could be. So we're actually in the need of a lot of them.
So coming out of this conversation, if we were to excite some people to become mentors, you would want them to reach out to you?
Yes, please.
Will do. I don't want to gloss over the fact that you opened up a center when you started downtown, because we were just talking about the finances, right? You were giving away 10 grand. You were kind of going out on your own in business. How were you able to get to the point where opening up your own center downtown and being able to renovate it? How did all of that come together?
Well, the first piece was that God told me to find an old vacant building and talk the landlord into giving me discounted rent if I rehab this building. So I did. I pulled tax deeds on some buildings, met a guy that was willing to help, talked him into letting me rehab it if he gave me what I thought was discounted rent. I can't say later the amount of money that I put into his building and time and energy I made out on that deal, to be honest. It was a lot more work than I could have ever dreamed. But we got into it. We renovated. A lot of that just came community partners, people that came alongside us when we needed it, volunteers that came in and ripped out carpet and painted walls and dealt with termites and rats. And it was wild. And the heartbreaking part to that is at the beginning of this year, we were informed he was not going to let us renew the lease. So we actually just closed what was my downtown center. And at the beginning of the year, not long after the 100 Men Who Care, I experienced the most grief and heartache that I've ever seen as an adult, professionally anyways. And I didn't know how to let go of this dream and this vision that I felt I had done exactly what the Lord had told me to do. And it was far beyond what I could have ever dreamed. We had a gym and a yoga studio, an art room. We had computer labs. We had private mental health counseling rooms. We had rooms dedicated to life skills. We had an entire kitchen to teach cooking and nutrition classes. We had an entire floor dedicated to my executive program. And I lost every bit of it But out of that has grown what we're calling 12 Blocks Unites Us. It's a city initiative where we are going to take the concept of this empowerment center and we're going to open them all over the city because it worked. Everything about that center worked. Every kid that walked into that building is a better young woman than she was before. The day before I closed, I had a young lady walk 3 hours to get to me. And that day, all I was doing was feeding them. Like it was our Christmas event. We just did food. And the thing that I saw the most, though, is in my high school outreach at 150 of them, so many of them couldn't get to me. I mean, our school bus system, for them to go 12 minutes would take 2.5 hours because they got to go to the hub and then go down. So instead of doing one big centralized hub, we're going to put them around the city. So, and I think the Lord knew that I wouldn't take on that initiative if I was still trying to run the big one. So it was part of his plan for me to have the confidence to stand in front of the city, to stand at the school board and say, hey, this worked. I watched it work. And at the same time, the hub was a lot funded. Every bit of the rent that came in our empowerment center was my company's tie. And my company lost $500,000 of revenue a week after we closed. So not knowing that I was going to lose that client, we lost 13 customers because the corporate office came in and made a change, and we wouldn't have had rent anyways. So I think he knew in advance was going to let me go through the grief. So I would begin to fight in our city that we needed to take that concept and put it all over so the kids could just walk.
Yeah, I don't know about you. Not a huge believer in coincidences. I think everything does, in fact, happen for a reason. So it sounds like the timing of this really did align the way it was supposed to.
And it was just a season that I could process the grief well. I commented on that a minute ago. If it wasn't for the fact that I had taken the time years ago to know what that meant, honestly, I'd have quit. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today to do it again because I didn't think when it happened that I was going to have the heart to do it again. It wrecked me with everything I had. And the thing that one of my girls looked at me as I'm bawling and crying and just not sure how I could rebuild both companies again. She looked at me and she said, Miss Della, you told us Girls of Virtue was a community of women loving on women. Why does it matter where we go? And I was like, okay. So we've gone back over the summer. We're just meeting downtown. We're meeting at the beach. We're kind of making up back to what we did in the beginning that really got the girls engaged. And then we're meeting with the city to try to get some more buildings, and we're going to build a bunch of them.
Okay. Walk me through the process of the buildings. What's the first one? Have you guys zeroed in on one?
We haven't zeroed in yet on actual building, but we've identified the locations in which we want them. We partner with those 3 dropout prevention high schools. Each of those schools have 200 students in them every year that graduate. So they're typically kicked out of traditional schools, struggling in home life. They go to these dropout prevention high schools, and it's a self-paced program. So I can walk in as a 10th grader and graduate the same year because I can do it at my pace. But those schools get out at 12:30. So most of those kids struggle. You're putting them right back into the thing that I told you got me in trouble when I was a kid is nowhere to go after school. So Dunn Avenue, Arlington, and the Normandy West Side. And then we're also partnered with River City Science Academy Middle High School. So those where our 4 locations are going to be, where we're trying to strategically find properties. We met with DeVille County Public Schools and asked them if they would share with us properties that they owned that they'd be willing to. So I had that meeting 2 days ago and he said yes. So we're asking the city to do the same, is to give us, properties that they're willing to sell, willing to donate, land that they might be willing to donate. And we'll be announcing at the golf tournament in October the full strategic plan of, hey, here's the properties we've identified. This is what we're going to need to open them. And then with the centers, we're using a website called Unite Us. And that's why we call it 12 Block. Part of why we call it 12 Blocks Unites Us is it'll be one platform that I can streamline the process for the kids. So right now, if a youth walks into my office, they need mental health, they need food, they might be homeless. I have to send them to do 4 to 7 different applications. This software lets me do no extra applications, and it tells me based on a map, all the people that can fill the void of what the kid needs based on where they are. And then we're going to go 12 blocks out from every hub. If I go 12 blocks from every business, I'm going to find a pastor, I'm going to find a mental health provider, I'm going to find a teacher, I'm going to find a financial advisor, I'm going to find a doctor, I'm going to find a business professional that are willing to donate an hour of their time to teach what they're good at that the kids in their community need to know. So then you begin to unite the communities 12 blocks at a time. You use that resource. Then I find the kid that's being abused at home. I find the little girl that's being human trafficked. I even find the grandma that's eating her cat food because she doesn't have the resources to do it, because she's going to be the lady that comes and volunteers. And then you streamline the process. So we're going to open them up from 12:30 to about 7:30. From 12:30 to 2:30, we're doing fellowship, fitness, and food. Kids need outlets, and they need to know how to be healthy. We need to stop teaching our kids how to eat plastic and that they don't need to exercise. So we're going to build a gym, get them out there, get them moving. I'm going to make sure that they get food. So we're going to give them veggies and fruits and, just give them an apple, man. Just make sure they have food. And then I want them to know that they're loved. So every community hub's going to have one person that's there, that hub. Your job is to know the kids in your community. And then from 3 to 7, we're partnering with all the local nonprofits on professional and personal skills, mental health, and vocational trades. Every one of our high school students need to walk out of high school with the ability to make enough money to pay their bills. They can't do that at a fast food restaurant or a gas station. Rent in our city is $1,200 to live in the not nice areas. I don't even want to send my girls to those apartment complexes because it's not safe. They don't do well. I can't, the anxiety goes out the door. They're getting them molested and all the things. So if I can get them a vocational trade within 6 to 12 months of them, either right as they're graduating high school or right after, then I give them the same thing I was trying to do in the beginning. So we're reaching out to JTech and all the colleges of going, hey, come in, partner with us, and begin to teach these kids the trades. Because then you change everything. You reduce our medical expenses in our city. You streamline the process for our nonprofits. You reduce crime, because if they're hanging out with me, they're not out doing things they don't need to do. You solve for human trafficking. And the prayer is that our mission in the long run is to do 12. And then I'm asking all other major organizations if they're willing to be a hub, to come be a hub with me. YMCA, they can be a hub. Just use the system. So when the kid comes in, we know who they are, what do they need, and how do we streamline that process for them? And then they get connected. And then you start to watch the city link together, and we will heal this city from the inside out.
It's pretty good stuff, Della. That's pretty good. I have a question about the partnerships. When you are meeting with, you can even use the old Jack's Daily Record building as an example, but when you're meeting with these different schools who are willing to give you information, and you're meeting with all these different nonprofits to get them to partner with you on the initiatives, it seems like you get a lot of yeses. Whenever you reach out to them, a lot of people say, like, yes, I'd like to work with you. How are you pitching Girls of Virtue and the work you're doing to these other people to get them on board with the mission?
Easy. I mean, I'm the kid I'm trying to help. I was the kid that I wish to God 20 years ago somebody would have bothered to come alongside me and, one, teach me the things I know today. My 20s and 30s would have been so different if someone would have bothered to say, hey, this is what this is, how to heal from the things that I've been through. And then the girls that we already have that have been with us, their stories are unreal. And so there's y'all at the 100 Men Who Care. That's the first presentation. Y'all were the first people to see our video that got made this year. I didn't even have to talk. It was the principals and the girls talking about the impact that it had made for them. And everybody in our city wants to help. They want to do good work. The only thing is we're just kind of siloed, get a little competitive when money gets involved. But the need is so undeniable. We've got kids in our community that need a pair of shoes, that are hungry. The human trafficking and the sexual abuse is just rampant. I honestly think you could put 100 young women in a room and 80% have had some kind of sexual abuse before they turned 18. And I think a lot of that just comes when I sit down with people. It's undeniable, one, that I did it and it's me and I was that kid. But honestly, all besides that, it's God. He has put, it's like, there's a part in the Bible where God says that he kept them through the desert and he gave them a pillar of smoke by day and fire by night. Every step of the way, he tells me who to talk to. He tells me who to call. And when I walk into those rooms that people probably would normally say no, it's just undeniable of the collaboration that comes behind his will and his presence. because I'm stepping in to do what he told me to do. Because again, I didn't want to start a city initiative. I didn't want to launch a nonprofit. I didn't even really want to renovate a building. I just wanted to do what the Lord was asking of me, and I just do it every step of the way. So if you'd have asked me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting with you today telling you what's happened over the last 5 years, I'd have laughed at you. And I'd have bet you $1,000 that you had lost your mind and that all I was going to do was do a small consulting firm. And if you really would look for me too hard, I'd be on a beach in Costa Rica, scuba diving, driving a four-wheeler for fun. Like that would have been what I thought I was going to do. But when I got real serious about going to Costa Rica, I kept dreaming that he ate me by a whale. So I just keep doing what he asked me to do. And then I look back and I see the impact, and it just lit a fire in my soul that I can't sit back and ignore the fact that our kids need a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. You keep talking about your faith, and with how your teenage years went and how you've discussed those, I'm very interested to know when you started to lean into that faith and what the faith itself means to you.
It means everything. It is. I mean, I wouldn't be the woman I am. I started to really lean in when I was in my late teens and my early 20s, but I still, for a long time, kind of did what a lot of us do. You know, there's a God. Like that part's easy. Like if you really look at like the data, like everything points that there is a creator bigger than we are. Even the Big Bang, like all the things, like there's a God, there's something bigger than us. And I knew that, like I knew he was there, and I'd go to church and I believed in the things. But as I began to just do them, there was just things that show up. You know, I ended up in Jacksonville because of a job offer I never applied for. The first time I got challenged to tithe, the pastor said, tithe the money. And if you don't agree with it at the end of the year, I'll give you your money back. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll do it. And then I did it. And then it was just undeniable. It was like everything had changed. My heart had let go of the peace that came from success and money, and the fear that changed. And then as I stepped out in my company and tithing was easy. I'd already navigated that. So, okay, I'm going to step there. And then this journey, you could sit with me all day, every day, and try to tell me that there's not a Holy Spirit and that he doesn't talk. And there's no chance in the world that you'd ever convince me otherwise, because I've got proof. The things that have happened along the journey, I couldn't have done. The fact that I found a guy that loved the Lord so much that let some crazy girl that said I sold my home to do this whole journey. Like, I think I left that out. But like, I sold everything I owned. I quit. I gave up the money. I sold the dream home. I sold the toys. And I told this guy to let me rent his building. I lived in that building for 2 of the 3 years during rats and termites and all the things. And every step of the way, there's this peace that truly does surpass all understanding. And the vision, when I wrote Girls of Virtue, like I said, I wrote it running the Beach Boulevard Bridge. I would get these whispers on my heart. And I've always said it. He whispers, I take notes. Okay, cool. Hey, Siri, take a note. Hey, Siri, take a note. And as I would take the notes, I'd come home and realize that some of them were pretty repetitive. So those go on white. If there's another side wall behind me, it's just Post-it notes. And I just write them down. And if they showed up there, I'd go do it. And if I did it, it worked. And I was like, okay, and then you just do it again. And so it's everything. I would lay my life down in all aspects and say, God, whatever you want me to do, I'm in. And I pray to God that everybody else figures it out. But there's also a piece to that when we, as who I am and what my company teaches, we teach the Bible because it is the oldest book in history. Even if you don't agree with me on anything about God and Jesus, the values and virtues are good. Love your neighbor, don't steal, don't lie, be good to other people. Like all that's just good. So we've opened our space and said, man, I do hope and pray one day you find that out, because it really is a peace and love that is undeniable. But at a minimum, I just want to teach good values and virtues. And if you never agreed with me, that's okay too, because I love you and I just want to help our kids. And that's the part that's been really amazing to watch, is that unites all of us. It's the thing that separates us the most, is we get so caught up in the thing we don't agree on. But when it comes down to it, no matter where you stand on religion, where you stand on people, You agree that we need love. You agree we need community. You agree we need good values and virtues. And you agree in the pillars of that. We need to know that we're not a mistake. This generation, 8-year-olds are killing themselves because they don't know that God made them for a purpose and they're not a mistake. Our mental health is rampant. Okay, great. Let's just teach them that they're wonderfully and perfectly made. So it's everything.
It's a really good answer, by the way. And it seems like it's pretty clear that you have a lot of passion behind your faiths, which I think 50% of my podcast episodes, people have really leaned into the faith part, and I don't shy away from it either. I love to see that it's making a comeback, that people are being more vocal about it.
Yeah, I think that's part of where we got where we are, is when we believed in something that's so undeniable. I think a lot of us just felt that, back then I didn't have that faith. I was that, kind of one foot on the bridge or on the dock, and the other one was kind of on the boat, and I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with it. But when I've seen it and I stepped in, the power that came behind it, the peace that came behind it, the confidence that came behind it, then you're going, hey man, I'd give anything to share that with you. Like, I want you to feel love. I want you to feel peace. And I think we just thought that like all the other bad wouldn't happen. And then we got quiet. I think a lot of that's just, it's unfortunate. But I do agree with you. Our generations that are coming are very open and honest to want to learn. And if you really dive, I've done it. There's a book in my room we found in the old building. It was an 1800 Bible. We've been studying it and using it as reference. It would have been one of the oldest books in history. It's the same book. There's no difference. It's King James Version, so there's these thous and those. Like, it's really hard to read, but the stories are the same. It has been proven time and time and again that the story in the book really happened. Okay, cool. Then we need to, at a minimum, just make sure people know what that is. And then he gets to do the rest. I don't need to do anything else. I need to push it or shove it down your throat or argue with you about it. I love you regardless, and you love me regardless. So I don't have any other answer. I can't tell you why this has all happened. Why else would I be sitting here with you today? I didn't call 100 Men Who Care. They called me, and 15 years ago, the first time I saw a thing God put on my heart, it was me standing in a room. And the only words I heard 15 years ago was tell your story. Tell your story. And for 15 years, I kept going, what story? I don't know what you're asking of me. And I remember going to a pastor going, he told me to do it, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And he made me a care team partner. And I was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. This isn't what he said to do. But I look at it now, I wouldn't walk with my girls well if I hadn't done care team training, because now I walk with them and I don't try to fix them. I just love them. I didn't know how to do that before. I wanted to fix it because I was that kid and was like, well, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. What else wrong with you? And so that it's just so crazy, because then now I'm getting to do exactly what he told me to do. Tell my story. So if we were to really take some time to listen to that fire inside, the calling that whisper has always been there, imagine if every one of us did that, what our world would really look like in 20 years.
Yep. Who knows? We'll see, though. Maybe more people lean into it. And it's through stories like this. I kind of actually want to talk about the growth of the organization, because so much of this has been because of the guidance that God has given you. So we know where it started at year 1, and we're at year 5. And I feel like Girls of Virtue has just transformed over those 5 years. So what is different today than when you first started? Like, how have we grown into what we are?
Everything is different. Again, I wanted to write a check for 5 kids. And at this point, we've got high school outreach. We have what we call 3 pillars: engage, equip, empower. So engage is my high school outreach. Equip is the workshops that we teach. It's going to be 12 Blocks Unites Us and these hubs that we put to equip the kids. Empower is this pilot for the executive program, which is a 3-year program where we take the girls, run them through a 3-year program. They get a mentor, vocational trade, one-on-one coaching in my 4 pillars. And then going into 2025 to 2026, we're asking some men to come alongside us to launch what we're calling Men of Vision. And that's because I go into the schools and the boys sneak in my workshops. And they ask me why I don't help them. And my joke a lot is I try to date in today's society and I can't even figure that out. So I don't think I can help them be young men. And they giggle and they go back to class. But what it comes down to is when I started this, it was Girls of Virtue because I wanted to do the mentoring. So I just wanted to walk with the 5 girls that we gave the money to. But as I got into our schools and I think about launching 12 Blocks Unites Us, and I'm meeting with people like the superintendent of our school board and trying to get to the mayor and going to all the big leaders in our city going, hey, we got to streamline this process. It's got to be better. I'm not a nonprofit person. I hate politics. I don't want to do it. But there's such a need. And God, again, these are all things that he said, go do. Go do. Here's what you do next. Here's what you do next. I would have never dreamed that I'd have done any of this. So as I think about what the next big vision is, we're talking like, as I'm meeting with, I put in elders this year. So there's elders now instead of a board. We're talking about nationwide initiatives. We're talking about how can we take it around to all the schools? How do you begin to put hubs all over the place to make sure that there's never a kid that does what I did as a kid? All of these are things that were not a part of the plan. They were not what I thought we were going to do. And at the same time, still growing virtue consulting. We're in literally, my meeting before you was with the SBDC on what would it mean to fully onboard a team and launch a nationwide campaign for virtue consulting, because the industry, that what we're doing there, we're disrupting the car business. And our entire umbrella, as we call it for the car dealers, we tithe 10% of our gross. And then the initiative with the car dealers is, hey, let me manage your vendor relationships and I'll take 10% of that. And I'm going to put a hub in your community. And I'm going to put centers to help your kids and help them with vocational trades and job training and all of the things. None of that was in the first business plan at all.
So it's evolved. Curiously, as things stand now with all the different partnerships and the things that you're launching, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for anything in terms of what your needs are, partnership, volunteering, donorship, how would they reach you? How would they know that you're the right person to reach out to? I want to flip the other side of the coin too. How would somebody who's going through it and needs guidance and mentorship find you? I think I want to talk about both sides of the coin. How can people get to you?
It's going to actually be the answer for both. Currently, right now, everything is still my personal cell phone. So when you go to our websites, our social media pages, it's me. The cell phone is an 850 number because it's the same number I've had since I was 17 years old. They get me. Now, if I'm out of the country or not available, they typically get an assistant that says, hey, she's not here. How do I get you connected? Our biggest initiative right now. So if a young woman in our city needs help, call me. You go to my website, girlsofvirtue.org, and it's me. If you go to Facebook or Instagram, it's me. It's coming to my phone. And it links my Facebook page to it. My Instagram's linked to it. So if you look Girls of Virtue, you'll see Della Sellers. So all my personal pages are connected. And I wanted them to know that because I care. We've reached over 500 girls in 5 years. Every single one of them have my personal cell phone. If I do a campaign right now, I individually text I copy and paste the same message to every girl in my phone under what school I met them at. And then the thing we need is the campaign that I've just launched. Our biggest need with Girls of Virtue is to onboard a full team, which would be an operations director, a programs director, a development director. And we have a 5K coming up in August and a golf tournament in October. So all that's all over on our stuff. If you send me a message, an email, it's Della@girlsofvirtue.org. And we can send that information to you. But when it comes to our city, that's what I need help with. Whether it's monthly donations, like monthly donations would fully cover and staff my team if a couple of people would just go in and donate $100 a month or $25 a month, because that adds up real fast. That covers the staff that we need to, one, make sure I don't quit, because this is a lot and it's way bigger than I thought it was going to be. And sometimes it feels like it might break. But God's continued to prove I'm not alone. And there's just people that when I need it, show up and they help. But for us to do this whole big initiative of what's next, There needs to be consistent people. The kids don't need change. They need people that are in it for the long haul. So that's what we're working on. So come to the golf tournament, come play, come run the 5K, come play demo, come sponsor. Our golf tournament will be our 5th year. If you sponsor at my golf tournament, I'll put you in front of 150 people. What better use of your marketing budget could you ever spend if I'm gonna put you in front of 150 people? And you get to talk to them. Like, you get to stand on a hole and go, hey, I sponsored. This is what we do. And you'll get to meet the kids. My girls come, my high schools come. You'll get a chance to get engaged with them. But it's undeniable. We work right here in this community. It is our kids, our local communities. Partners want to get involved. Let's go. Come sit at the table with me as we talk about how do we heal this city from the inside out. And if you're a person that wants to mentor or volunteer and you want to get in the trenches with me, let's go. Come on. You got my personal cell phone. It's on my website. I'll take all the help I can get.
Where's the golf tournament?
It's going to be Amelia Golf and Country on October 3rd.
October
and then
3rd.
The 5K is August 9th, and we're starting at the Winston YMCA.
I'll make sure that's in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Is there anything that we've left out? Is there anything that about the nonprofit or about the consulting business that you feel everybody should know?
I think we've left anything out. The ask that I haven't asked is that more than I need any of it, join me in praying over our kids and that we begin to really, truly make the impact that we're trying to make. Because despite the fact that I don't feel like I've come anywhere close to doing what I want to do for these kids, that's what we need. Because the hurt that I see in our kids, the brokenness that still needs to be solved, and I'm not touching anywhere close to all of them. We're not reaching, I'm only going into the girls at this point and helping with them. And that's what our city needs, is a city praying over the things that are not okay. Because when you think of, there's a section in Ephesians and it talks about the armor of God and it breaks down all the pieces. But at the very end, he says, you will do it all by prayer. And that's where all this came from, is when I got that first vision of, hey, 5's not enough, I just prayed and said, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to know about this? So I ask everybody in our city that sees this to share it with everybody else and just ask and pray, how can I help? And then pray for protection and healing over the kids in our city.
I think we can do that, Della. I do. We have a lot of people who are Christ-centric that watch this, and I think that they'll start to lean into the prayer to make sure that our kids are well taken care of.
That makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we close here, I know we've mentioned 100 Men Who Care a couple of times, and if anybody that's listening doesn't have the context, once a quarter, there's 100 men who get together, and they get in a room with 3 nonprofits. To get in that room, we have to give a $100 donation. But if you multiply 100 men times $100, you have a $10,000 check that you have the opportunity to give away once a quarter. So being a part of it, you can give away $40,000 to local nonprofits and really make an impact. And Della was at our second event. She pitched as one of the nonprofit leaders, and she won the event. And that money has certainly made its impact. And as we come up on the next event here on July 9th and the one coming up in October, I encourage all nonprofits, please go to the website, 100menwhocarejax.org, and put your name on the list. We'd love nothing more than to have you come pitch and to be a part of what we're doing at 100 Men.
And I'll share on top of that, one, I've joined 100 Women Who Care because of y'all's event. But when that event happened, the donation 100 Men Who Care gave us was $5,400. Part of the week before that, we had committed $5,400 to set up what we called Bloomerang. And it was a platform to, one, help manage volunteers, because at this point, again, I mentioned it's all kind of coming to me at this, when it comes to emails. If anybody's met me, I don't answer it. I suck at it. I'm not good at it. So volunteers weren't getting connected the way they did. So it was giving us a platform now that people can just go online and start to register for that. And it was a software that as donations come in, it'll help us streamline the donations. So one is I can make sure at the end of the year that I don't miss getting somebody a tax receipt, that I can call and say thank you to the people that help. Because if you make a donation on the website, it goes to my accounting firm. I might not see that. But Bloomerang began to kind of help us set that up. And it was going to be that platform that we were really needing to know that to launch this campaign. I wasn't going to be able to do it unless I had software in place. So we took a risk. We put it on the credit card, not knowing how, it's one of the things as a nonprofit, you're not supposed to have any debt. And, I just was like, we've got to have it. One of our volunteers was going to help set it up. And we just did it. And literally the check that y'all gave us was the exact amount of what I had committed to pay for that software the week before it, not knowing that I was about to lose the revenue that I was going to pay for it if I had to. And y'all stepped in and gave us exactly what we needed.
Yeah, I'll go back to something I said earlier. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm glad it all worked out the way it was supposed to, and that there was an impact that was had, because I think one of the greatest things I've done in the past 5 years was be a part of this 100 Men Who Care thing. I think
I just do that.
I think the potential of it long term is going to be incredible. I love that you joined 100 Women Who Care, because y'all are doing 100 Women Who Care doing the exact same thing that 100 Men are doing, donating money in large quantities to nonprofits in town. So as long as we can continue to lift up everybody that's doing amazing work, which is why the podcast exists, I consider that a good use of time and money.
For sure.
So great stuff. Della, one thing I always like to leave with, especially people who are in the nonprofit space making impacts, especially with kids, they are the future generation. We have to depend on them one way or another. On behalf of the city of Jacksonville, on behalf of 100 Men Who Care, thank you so much for everything that you do for our city. And thank you for representing us as well as you do. Very welcome. All right. Until next time.